Welcome to the latest episode of the Podiatry Business Podcast with myself, Laura O'Donnell, podiatrist, health clinic owner, and business mentor. So, today's podcast is called Why I Package My Treatment Packages, or why I package my treatment plans. So, let me explain to you what I mean and where this comes from. So, as a clinic owner and as somebody who treats patients still, I probably do about half a day a week. I found that when I was treating patients, especially in the early stages of running my business, that it was quite frustrating on occasions. So a patient might come in and they'd have a chronic problem, and you give them your best. You tell them everything they need. You tell them what they have and what they need to do to get better. And you know that you can fix this person. I can get this person back on their feet. And often it's somebody who's come in and has had a problem for a long period of time, and you think, well, this is pretty routine for me. I know what to do here. And they don't go ahead. They don't go ahead with the treatment. Or you might get a patient who come in and you recommend, for example, being a podiatrist. Let me give an example. A patient might come in and they have, say, plantar fasciitis. They might have it for a year and they can't walk, etc. And you explain to them that as part of the treatment, I'm going to give you orthotics for your foot mechanics. I'm going to give you some rehabilitation, etc., etc. So you start on the treatment, you give them the orthotics, and then the patient ghosts you. They cancel their appointments. They don't come back because they don't want to spend any more money. They've got to spend a lot of money getting the orthotic, come to see you, so they don't come back. And then what happens is maybe 6 months later, they'll come back and they'll start giving out. Or maybe they'll come out, whatever it is. Or you might even hear from a clinician down the road or a GP that such and such went to see you, spent a lot of money, didn't get any better. And that's completely unfair because the patient was totally uncompliant with the treatment. One occasion that springs to mind is a staff member of mine who had a little old lady came in with whatever issue, might have been lesser metatarsal pain, and part of the treatment was that she gave her orthotics. And she didn't want to spend too much of the patient's money, etc. So she did orthotics and said, look, we'll just do pay as you go and we'll see how we get on. And the patient cancelled their follow-up and their review appointments. And then the patient came back maybe 2 months later, and the patient, lovely little old lady, absolutely tore into the staff member, so much so that I actually got a phone call. I had to come in and look after her because she was crying, was so upset from the whole thing. And frankly, I personally was sick of this. I was sick of patients not fully complying with the treatment, and yet somehow when they didn't do what they were needed to do, I was getting blamed, my team was getting blamed, my team were stressed out, etc., etc. So I decided that I needed to do something about this. So I kind of had two options. But I had one option that I was explaining, and then one that I kind of discovered myself. And the first option was to block book. So block book basically is where you book a number of appointments together in advance. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean the patient pays in advance, but let's imagine that you want to see that patient once a week for 4 weeks. You get them to book all of those and commit to all of those appointments. Now, they may not pay you in advance, but they're block booking. And I tried that for a while, and I found it was okay, improved it a little bit, but really it didn't fix it, because what was happening is that patients were having to have the conversation in their head every single time about the justification of whether they were going to come to see me or not, and my team, because they had to spend money every single time. So I decided instead what I would do, after looking into it and doing a bit of research, and actually, if I'm honest, I got this from non-clinical ideology, and I said I could apply that to what I do and my problem, and I decided I was going to do packaging of care, packaging of plans. So let me explain to you how that works. So a patient might come into my clinic, and they'll have a chronic problem, and I know that if they have a chronic problem, it's going to take me approximately 3 months, 12 weeks, give or take, to get them better, because the research tells me it takes 12 weeks for tissues to recover when you have a long-term problem. When they have a short-term problem, it's a different thing, but let's just stick with the long-term problem. So I ideally want that patient to commit for that 3-4 months so that I can just get on with get them better, because I know they're not going to get fully resolved in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, etc. So I want them to commit to that plan, to that period of time. So what I'll do is I'll give them a 3-month package. We call, in my clinic, we have, say, for example, a 3-month package. And what we'll do is we'll have everything included in that, every possible thing that the patient could possibly need included in that, so that there's no real barriers for them to say yes. We try to have as minimum amount of terms as we can. We just want to get on with getting them better. Now, the benefit for the patient is this. Firstly, they know what the price is. Now, if they're going for 3 months, they know it's going to be expensive. That's okay, because they're not coming into me saying, spend my money or save me money. They're coming in saying, I have this problem. I can't do this. Can you get me back walking, running, whatever it happens to be? But what happens in most clinics is the patient doesn't really know what it's going to end up costing them, because it could go on longer or less, etc. So what we do in our clinic is it's a set price for the treatment package, and it's not going to go up anymore. So, for example, I think the record was one particular patient ended up having 36 consultations for that treatment plan, and it was the exact same price as if they'd had 10 or 12. Now, the average patient has about 12 to 15 appointments for this. And I didn't make money on that patient. I actually probably lost money on that, but it was the right thing to do, and that patient got better. Now, the chances of them sticking and coming for 36 appointments and paying me every single time were incredibly slim, because they had a chronic problem that was their chronic and really complex issue that was going to take us a lot of work, as you can see. So because they had a set price, they knew it was going to cost them X, and it wasn't going to go up anymore. And the second benefit for the patients, they can just get on with getting it better. They only have to make that decision when it comes to pricing and worrying about the price and figuring out, is it value? Is this what I'm willing to do? Once. So we do that on the first consultation, and after that we just move on. We get on with getting them better. And that's what they like, because they like to know that they have the ability to come in. They know what the plan is, they know what's going to cost, and they can just get on with it, as I said. So the benefit for me and for my staff and for my clinic is, one, we have a committed patient. We have a compliant patient who's going to stick to the plan of treatment. So, when you have a patient who might comes in and then you get, in the early stages, you might get to see a big difference. And then in the middle stage of the treatment, you might plateau. That's usually when patients drop off in our clinic. When we have them in this package, that doesn't happen. They understand that that's okay. They've already paid for it, so they're going to stick with it. And we manage to get them through the plateau and onto the other end. So we have a committed patient. That makes a much less stressed patient. And as a result, a much less stressed staff. And much less complaints, and it's a much more pleasant place to come to work, because our patients are not worried that, what's this going to cost? Am I ever going to get better? They know from day one this is going to take time, and they know that the pricing and the money issues have all been dealt with, all been answered, and we just move on from that. As a result, what we get is we get more compliant patients, and therefore better outcomes for our patients, because they've stuck to the plan. You know that most of the patients are coming to you, if they just do what you tell them and they stick to the plan you've suggested, whether you package it or not, they'll get the outcome they're looking for, but many don't. So we get better outcomes because they stick with the plan. We get better reviews online because we get better outcomes. So our online reviews are much simpler to get, helps our SEO, helps our online presence, our organic presence, and helps grow the business. And we get much better referrals, because our patients who could get an outcome from us that they couldn't get elsewhere simply because they didn't stick with the other clinic's treatment plan, means that we end up with a much better referral network from our patients. So you can see there's benefits for the patients and there's benefits for you as the clinic owner. Now, how you price it is a different thing, and I'm not going to get into that here. But ultimately what we do in my clinic is I've made a decision that I charge less than I would if the patient was to come for every appointment. So for example, I know that the average patient might come in, say, 15 times, and I'll also give them orthotics. I work out what the pricing is and I charge them less, because it's not about simply making more money out of patients, because if you give a good quality service and you give a good outcome, everything else will flow from that. So what you want to think about, or the things you want to consider if you decide that this is something you want to try, and what we do is I teach my clients how to do this, and we brainstorm how they can do it in their clinic, because my package isn't necessarily the right package for your clinic. But things you want to consider is two main things, really. One is you need to get staff buy-in. So if your staff don't really understand why you're doing it, I think it's just all about money, then they're not going to buy in, and they're not going to get your clients or your patients to go ahead with it. So you've got to be really careful, and you've got to be really clear on why you're doing it. And you're doing it not to make more money, because frankly your staff don't care whether you make more money. You're doing it because of the other reasons that we described. And then the second thing is you need to get patient buy-in. And patient buy-in is actually much easier than staff buy-in, because staff are worried that what if a patient says no? If I have to sell a 3 months of treatment, is that going to be harder for me to sell than just selling the next appointment? And actually it's not. It's actually easier to sell a package of care, because it kind of answers all of the patient's issues. If you know what you're doing, if you have the right scripts, you understand the psychology of persuading people to do what's good for their health, etc. But really you need patient buy-in. And there's two main issues that you're going to get, main issues if you do this well that you always want to get, which is totally understandable. One, the patient is going to ask you, am I guaranteed results? And you have to be honest and give them straight answers. And you and I both know you can't guarantee anything in medicine. And then two, they'll want to know what happens if at the end I'm not completely better. And you need to have an answer for that. Now, that depends on your clinic and what you'd like to do and how you want to structure it. And I'm not going to explain how we do it in our clinic. That's what we do, teach our clients, and we work out how we can do all of that. But they are the main things that they're going to ask. And really what it comes down to is in that initial appointment, that initial assessment, when you're explaining why the package is the answer, that you set those expectations and you're realistic and you're honest about those expectations for your patients. So if you do decide that this is something you want to add into your clinic, and I would urge you to consider it, because you probably already do this for nail surgery. So most podiatrists, for example, when I speak to them and ask them today, when someone has nail surgery, what do they charge? And they might say, for example, £400, whatever. And I say, what do they get? Well, they get the surgery and they get the follow-ups and they get all the basic packing and the dressings and da-da-da. And I go, well, that's a package. And then they go, oh yeah, it is actually a package. So you're probably already doing it. So if you're considering doing this in other parts of your business, I would urge you to do so, because it will make for a easier business to run, a happier staff, a happier patients, better outcomes, and it makes your life a lot easier, and it will make your business more profitable. So until next time, this is Lorca Dunlap, podiatrist, clinic owner, and health business mentor, signing out.